Welcome on to the next edition of Down, the Comrades Marathon podcast. Don't let anybody tell you marathons are easy. That is for sure. My name is Brad Nadalt. We've got the coach Lindsey Parry with us. Lindsey, nice to touch base once again. We're in the middle of marathon season, the build-up to Comrades Peninsula yesterday. Doesn't matter how fit you are and how good a shape you are. Marathons are hard. Don't let anybody tell you anything different.
Yeah, and that is part of the point I was trying to make last week, is that don't try and let how you feel at the end of a 42-kilometer race dent your confidence for an ultra, because you are working way harder for those 42Ks than you will be for the 42Ks or the first 42Ks, hopefully. Hopefully, otherwise you're in real trouble. But no, you'll be going much slower, much easier in the first 42Ks of Comrades than you will at the marathon race. Yes,
you're not making me feel better about myself, but that is what it is. In today's podcast, we are going to be talking about injuries. Unfortunately, it is one of those things that happens in the build-up to Comrades for various reasons, and we're going to talk about what happens if you suspect you have an injury, if you are running in a bit of pain, what you need to do, when to seek help, what to seek help for, and what sort of help you would need. So that's what we're going to be chatting about today, because unfortunately it is one of those things we need to talk about. And the reason we need to talk about injuries, Lindsey, is because of...
You tell me. We don't want 68% of people not to finish Comrades. Yes, you almost caught me off guard there, Brad. But yes, exactly that. We want to talk about injuries because 68% of the people who start Comrades with an injury don't finish.
Yeah, and just, I mean, we talk about...
No. You see, listen to me. I'm speaking Greek here. 68% of the people who don't finish Comrades started with an injury.
Eventually we get it right. Yeah, and we're not making these stats up, Lindsey. Where did that number come from? I mean, if somebody's a novice and they're listening to this for the first time, I know we bang on about this year after year after year, but these numbers come from Comrades.
Yeah. Can't remember the exact year. I think it was 2014, but I can't swear to the exact year. But we took 1,000 runners, and in fact, we sent a survey to every runner who didn't finish, and 1,000 runners replied. So the stats are incredibly powerful. Our sample group is more than a quarter of the people who actually didn't finish Comrades that year, and 68% of those people that didn't finish had an injury. And so that's how we know that 68% of people who don't finish Comrades didn't finish because of injury. So that's 680 out of the 1,000 respondents had an injury that they started Comrades with.
Yeah, I mean that's huge, and I think the lesson to learn out of that is if you have something wrong with you, you need to get it sorted as soon as possible. And unfortunately, when you are running big mileage and you're running marathons and building on building and building, sometimes things do go wrong. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, Lindsey, is when do you go, because we're weird, us runners, that we go, you know what, my leg's a little bit sore, but I'm going to take it for a run to see how it feels. And generally doesn't feel better after taking it for a run to see how it feels. But we almost like kick the can down the road, hope that things are going to get better, and they generally don't. But let's talk about, like, when is it okay to train through, and when do we need to get help?
Yeah. So look, my philosophy is that if there's pain, you don't run. Okay. So that's really my philosophy. And so if you have pain, typically get it treated. And the reason why I say that is the further away from the race you are, the more ruthless you are with that. I'm sore today, so I'm not going to run. I'm better tomorrow. Awesome. That's first prize. Second prize is I'm sore today, I don't run. Tomorrow I'm still sore. Go to physio. Go to physio, maybe miss one more day. That's 3 days of training. Oh, cool. I'm fine. Off we go. Okay. And that is typically the pattern for most minor little niggles. Okay. And so if we do it that way, typically you will be very unlucky to miss more than a week of training if that's the kind of strategy that you implement. Now, 3-4 days of training, even a week of training now or in the next 6 weeks, that isn't a train smash. Okay. Missing 2 to 3 weeks of training is a train smash. But if we have a niggle and we just persist in training with the niggle and it gets worse and or becomes chronic, then we get to a point where we have to do physio. It's not just one session, it's probably 3, plus all the resting that goes with it, a little bit of rehab that the physio gives us, and so on and so forth. So that's why if I'm sick or if I feel pain, I quite like the theory of just saying, shut it down for a day, reassess after 24 hours. After 24 hours, let's make some decisions. Okay, but now in the real world, as you say, Brad, where runners exist and where we know this is not how runners treat injuries, what can you do to at least make sensible decisions that don't compromise your ability to start Comrades, or even more important, to finish Comrades? Okay, so how do we do that? Again, I try to look at these tiers. Okay, so if I'm feeling some sort of discomfort, I'm definitely not going to do high intensity exercise. If you do that, then quite frankly, you're just stupid, because you are going to make it worse, or do some real damage to a different body part from compensation. So if there's discomfort, pain, we don't do high intensity exercise. We go for easy run. Okay, then we are looking for a couple of the following signs. When I run, does the pain progress? If the answer to that question is yes, you stop. Then you do need to go and get some physio treatment. If the answer is that when I run, the pain either decreases, goes away, or stays exactly where it is, and it's a discomfort of 3, 4, 5 maybe at a push. Okay, I will carry on running. Let's see how we are going. After a while of running, and you're running in that discomfort, is the discomfort enough to change the way that I'm running? Yes, stop running. Okay. If the answer is no, it's there, I'm aware of it, but it is not changing the way that I run at all, well, then that's okay. You can carry on for that run. Okay. Then we move on to the second layer. How do I feel 2 hours post-run? Has that pain increased in that 2-hour window? Yes or no? Yes, I have to rest for a day or two, see if this gets better, and or go to physio. No increase in discomfort in that 2-hour window. That's a good sign. Okay, I'm not going to run the next day, and I wouldn't. So if you're dealing with this kind of niggle, then you at best are going to run every second day. When you wake up in the morning, same thing applies. Is the pain better or worse than when I woke up yesterday? Okay, so what we are looking for in a nutshell here is any progression in pain. So if we get progression in pain either during a run, after a run, or day on day in the morning following runs, if there's a progression in pain, it's not staying the same or getting better, then you must stop. And if you ignore that, that's when you start pushing yourself into this area where you can miss anything between 1 week to 3 months of running, and or end up having to start Comrades with an injury.
The interesting thing here, and I was just thinking as you were talking about the sort of stopping, and then if you do it soon enough, you don't lose out on too much training. And I almost think one of the reasons we do it, where we keep sort of kicking the can down the road, is because we've got this fear that if we stop training, we're going to mess up our Comrades, that we're going to lose so much fitness that we're not going to be able to continue. And I think that where that's rooted is what causes us to do this. And I think it's important to let people know that if you take a week off, don't do anything, you're not going to lose any fitness.
Yeah.
So when do you actually start losing fitness? Because I think if people understand that, then maybe this injury management process would be a lot better.
Yeah, look, that's a really great way of looking at it. So there's always 2 tiers to all of this. The first one is like, let's just look in absolute terms. What are you going to lose? So in a week, you're going to lose almost 0. And what you lose is going to be overcompensated with in freshness. So in other words, at the end of that week, if you start training again, you're probably going to feel a whole lot better than you did at the start of the week. Week 2, you probably do start to lose fitness, but it's not noticeable. It's so negligible that you won't notice it. And again, you get this real kick up in freshness. Week 3 is where you start to lose fitness. And so that's why I was talking in this around, like, you know, if we miss a few days, it's nothing. But if we push ourselves to a point where we start to miss 3 weeks and 3 weeks plus, then we've got a problem. And then just let me finish off my thought, Brad, because this might be where your question's going anyway. And then, of course, there is nothing that says that you can't do anything when you're injured. You may not be able to run, but you might still be able to carry on doing strength training in particular, or riding a stationary bicycle, or swimming. So there are still things you can do to maintain your fitness and your strength, so that when you do come out of this injury, you can literally hit the ground running.
Yeah, that's exactly the point I was going to make. I mean, that 2 weeks, and when you say the 3 weeks where you really start seeing a noticeable difference, that's if you're doing absolutely nothing. If you're literally sitting on the couch and doing nothing. But when you do add in things like swimming or stationary bike, that drop-off is a lot less than if you're doing absolutely nothing. So I think that was exactly the point I wanted to ask you about. Then, Lindsey, as far as catching up, because I think a lot of us fall into this trap too, that if we do take a week off because we've got an injury, we feel like we have to catch up what we've missed, because that's going to impact our training too. What's your thought on catching up training if we've missed something? And we're talking injury here, but the same would apply to illness. If you picked up a cold and you needed to take a little bit of time off, do we play catch up, or what's gone is gone?
No, so we never play catch up at Coach Parry. We sometimes swap sessions. So let's in a week where you have like a crazy first 3 days of the week, and you just know, like, Tuesday you're going to be feeling terrible for your interval session. You rather run easy on Tuesday and then do your harder run on Thursday when you're feeling good. That's fine. But if we don't do Tuesday's session, then we don't catch it up on Friday. So now we're running Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we don't play catch up. Similar, after an injury, those kilometers are gone. We don't try and work them in somewhere else and fix it up. And in fact, I'll go as far as to say that first week after injury, you also just need to modify that training a little bit. My first run back from injury is always 20 minutes, maximum 20 minutes. And the reason for it is very simple. There's nothing significant in that 20 minutes other than, in a 20-minute run, I'm never going to be far enough away from home that if something hurts, I can't just walk back home. 20K little loop around my house always means that I'm probably maximum a 10-minute, 5 to 10-minute walk. What did I say?
A 20K loop.
Did I really say that?
You did.
Jeez. Okay, well, I'm glad you clarified that. 20 minutes, because that means you are always within walking distance of getting home. So if the injury isn't healed, you're not going to make it worse by being half an hour from home when it hurts, and you go like, oh, it's going to take me over an hour to get home. I'll just jog home and start resting tomorrow. Okay, so that's my first run is 20 minutes. And then, to be honest, if you get through 20 minutes, generally you will be okay to start doing your training. So I'll do 20, 40 an hour, that kind of build up to get myself there quickly. And with that sort of build up post, your risk of re-injuring is quite low. But if you catch up, your risk of re-injury, and in case of illness, the problem with jumping straight back in is that you often can pick up a secondary or a reinfection depending on exactly what it is that you've got. And so a return to play from illness is always a little bit of a ramp up. We'll go out for 20 to 30 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes, 45 to 60 minutes, and just build yourself back up over a week and then back into full training.
Yeah, Lindsey, we've mentioned this a few times as well, but like, we're in the middle of February, essentially, if you just past the middle point of Feb. But there's still a long way to go to Comrades. And if you do pick up something now, there's lots of time to get it sorted. But if you, as you're saying, if you are sort of trying to train through it and maintain your fitness, the last thing you want to do is end up with a real chronic injury come in the middle of March, middle of April, when you should be training proper for Comrades, and then you're forced to take 2 to 3 weeks off. So if you are in doubt, get it sorted quickly. That's, I think, the best advice we can give people, because it's a 5-day test match.
Right now, there is only downside to carrying on. So right now, where we sit in the middle of February, all those things that I gave you around progression and is it sore when you're running, there's actually no upside to training through an injury or an illness now. There's literally no upside. Get it sorted out so that you can train properly. When you're in your peak training, I still don't believe that there's a big upside to training through that. But at least you've got something now in your armory to know, like, how stupid am I being? Okay. I'll acknowledge that I've done this too. And I'll acknowledge that therefore I'm also stupid, but how stupid am I being? That's the question you ask yourself. Well, it's hurting, but it's really not bad. It's not changing the way I run. It's not getting any worse. I ran 30 Ks and it's no worse tomorrow, then I'm like, okay, well, I can carry on training and I will kind of hopefully get better when I start to taper. But the thing that you have to consider is that even in that scenario, it can suddenly get much worse. And that's why I hate this risk of even doing this. But okay, we're in peak training. We've got this idea now of, as long as it's not progressing and hopefully it's actually getting better, in which case then we know it's probably fine for us to carry on training. And then the same as now, as you get into the taper, there is zero, and I mean zero, upside to training in pain in the last 3 weeks going into the Comrades race. You need to get that sorted. So I will emphasize that again much later in the series. But just like there's no upside to training through pain right now, there is no upside to training through pain in the last 3 weeks leading to Comrades.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like investing, Lindsey, that there's not one, it's compounded over time. So there's not one training session in the 6-month build from the 1st of January to Comrades race day that's going to make a difference in your training. So if you miss one session or 2 sessions, it's fine. It's when you start missing lots that there's the problem. So get it sorted sooner rather than later. I'm going to ask this question because I'm here at the moment, not injured, but my shoes are starting to, I can feel it. Like, I don't know if it's just me, but once I get to the point where my shoes have got enough Ks in them, things start aching. So, and I can feel it in my knees and my ankles to start with. What, like the role of footwear in injuries and how to sort of stop that happening? Because I know if I keep training through, something catastrophic is going to happen. Talk to me about shoes, how many Ks, that sort of thing in relation to injuries. If you're over 50 and want to recover from sessions faster, run pain and injury free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join Lindsey and I for our upcoming Faster Beyond 50 Masterclass. In it, we'll show you how we helped a 70-year-old run a 47-minute, 18-second 10K, and how you can take those exact same principles and apply them in your training. Simply scan the QR code that's on screen right now, or click on the link in the description below to save your seat in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, so I mean, shoes effectively cause injuries in 2 ways. By far the least common is when people just run in shoes that are really not appropriate for them. So even when people run in shoes that aren't appropriate for them, the shoe doesn't tend to be the cause. I mean, there are obviously instances, but I'm saying it's a very low percentage. The much higher percentage where shoes start to cause problems is when they get to end of life. Now, modern shoes are simply not designed to last long. Okay, so the materials that they're made of are much lighter than shoes we grew up running in. They are much more comfortable, but the trade-off on both of those things, well, they generally don't need to be run in. I still recommend people run them in just in case you've got a default in the shoe. That does happen. That's probably more of a risk for injury from a new shoe than the wrong shoe. It's just that there's physically something wrong with it. But these shoes are manufactured basically, they're good to go. You can run in them. The materials are softer, they are lighter, they are more comfortable. What that also means is that we run through them quicker. So for your older runners that are used to going 1,000+ kilometers in a pair of shoes, modern shoes simply are not designed to do that. And in fact, I used to do the Comrades road shows not so long ago, and my recommendation was to change shoes every 800 Ks or so. Well, I'm afraid now it's 800 Ks maximum. Like I think you're really taking a risk if you go more than 800 Ks in a pair of shoes. And Brad, you're a big guy. So honestly, 650 Ks is really, I'd be looking. And I think you've experienced this in some of the brands. You don't even get 400 Ks out of a pair of shoes. So you've kind of got to shop with two things in mind. You've got to shop for comfort and durability. And so you really are looking for a shoe that'll get you to 600 Ks before it starts giving you problems.
It's actually quite funny, Lindsey, because I'm looking at my Strava. I track how many Ks I've done on my Strava, and you'd say 600, 650. Like 500 for me is max. Like I know that.
So I'm not surprised. Yeah.
The shoes I'm in, 512 Ks. There you go. So it's time. But yeah, that's exactly it. And as you say, the heavy runners,
look, and modern shoes aren't getting cheaper. So that, I mean, I do understand why people push through, but again, you are asking for injury if you are pressing much past the 800. And I'd say that's for a 75 to 80 kg athlete, that's, you're probably looking at 800-ish in a pair of shoes. So anything north of 80 means you're getting less out of a shoe. And if you're south of 70, then maybe you're getting a bit more out of a shoe.
And then, Lindsey, I want to talk about silly things. We've had it often where, like a week before Comrades, somebody decides they're going to go play beach volleyball. Now's the time. I know we're still a long way from Comrades, but if you want to give yourself the best possible shot, now's not the time to take up skydiving. That's the sort of thing. Like there's things that are higher risk of sort of major injury risk. Like I think,
beach
volleyball.
You're talking male silly things here, by the way. I just want to tell you that I've got a friend in the cricket team's mother. So one of my sons is a physiotherapist, and in her practice, she's doing very well out of males that have taken up paddle. Okay. No females have come to her after hurting themselves playing paddle. Only males. So we're talking about silly male things here, I think. But look, that goes for everyone. I often get this question about trail running, and what do I think about trail running for training? And the reality is that I like it. It's got so many good things in terms of preparing for Comrades. The reduced pace that you have to run at when you do trail running. The fact that the terrain that you're going over is softer on your joints, muscles, and ligaments. So not easier, but it's softer on your soft tissue, and that you get a lot of vertical meters, so you actually get quite strong for climbing up the hills. And you were asking a few podcasts back about should we run downhill. So again, there's lots of good things that come from trail running. However, your risk of turning an ankle goes up. Your risk of falling and breaking something goes up. So you just need to be very sensible when you do these things. And so I often say that these things are personality dependent. If you have to win every point, then stay away from these things until after Comrades. But if if the fun is just being there and hitting a ball back and forward, and it's okay. If you get beaten, you're probably okay. But that doesn't take away freak accidents. A family friend absolutely ruined his ankle just going back for a little regulation lob, and just the angle that he hit the ball and it came down on his back leg meant that his ankle hit the ground at just the wrong angle and dislocated. And then because of that, caused a spiral fracture and his fibula to actually snap. So again, like these are freak accidents. So yeah, you're absolutely right. We are knocking on the 1st of March. We're still not there yet. Most of us are amateur athletes, so we don't want to like cut off all the fun things. But I think your point is don't be silly. And if you're not doing it regularly now isn't the time to take it up. I think that's really the bigger point.
Yeah, absolutely. Linz, a lot goes into Comrades, and you want to be as sensible as possible. So you definitely don't want to be doing silly things like paddle, to be honest. The paddle people are going to hate us telling people not to play paddle, but that is one of those things. Lindsey, I think this is such an important podcast to talk about the injury side of things. I think we've covered pretty much everything we need to cover when it comes to injuries. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, but if not, we can wrap things up.
Yeah, no, that's it. I think the message is clear. If you do something about it. Don't let it fester and get worse. And really, we just want to do everything we can to help you get to the start line uninjured.
Yeah, you don't want to do like they do in 4Ways where they say if you do more, like at the gym. But that's not the way it works. So if you do less, that's the point. I just want to say give a huge shout out to Stefan Viljoen, who tagged us in his Instagram story sharing one of the episodes of this podcast. What we are going to do is we're going to send Stefan Coach Perry water bottle. So Stefan, thank you very much for doing that. Really do appreciate it. And it's messages and stories like that really do help us grow this podcast and reach many more Comrades runners and help them get their Comrades medal, which is what we love doing. From myself, Brad Nadelt, and the coach, until next week, stay safe. Don't play paddle. Recover well if you ran a marathon this last week. And if you're running this coming weekend, there's another one of the Baldwin Marathons. It is Pretoria, I think, this weekend. So, all the best. And fingers crossed, it all goes according to plan. Make sure to take those notes of what worked, what didn't work. Put those into the bank for your next long run and Comrades race day. So from the two of us, until next time, cheers.